Welcome to Asian Book Club, where we highlight Asian and Asian American authors. We are your hosts,
Jamae and Sabangan.
and I'm Stephen Park. And today we're bringing you read 5 of Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. And throughout the read, we've been looking at people that have a certain amount of extravagance and money, and clearly there's a large effect of what appearances look like, both in the form of clothing, but also in kind of your actual appearance of your skin and your I don't know, if you put makeup on or things like that. And there's always that term that gets used where people say Asians don't raisin.
Hmm.
And I hate that term. I don't know. It just sounds icky.
It
Like,
does sound icky.
I know it's also just, it's not clever. It doesn't really rhyme.
It's a half rhyme.
It's like a half rhyme, but it's not a great rhyme.
It's as though whoever was thinking about it had no other thing clever to say.
So I was thinking about it and I came up with something that's different. And I feel like it's catchier and it could be better. So my thoughts are, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, but what do you think of Asians aren't aging? So if you said it quicker, it's Asians ain't aging.
Uh, I think that's also a half rhyme. It's close, but not great either.
But it's still better than like the image of a raisin. Like I
Fair.
get that that's the opposite of what we're trying to do, but Asians aren't aging or Asians ain't aging. Like I feel like that has more of a catch to it. There's some form of alliterations with the A.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Gotcha. Got it.
I feel like it's better. I just feel like there has to be something that is much more useful.
Fair. I don't know. I feel like we need to workshop it a little more, and I don't think we'll get it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the operative word here is don't, because we do not age. But by using ain't, you are saying are not. And you know me, I'm speaking from an English grammar perspective. And by using the present continuous, it's as though we are never going to age. But as we know, by the time we hit 80, many Asian women do become these little kindred spirits
Mm-hmm.
that do age. So it's not like it's a continuous not aging, it's just that we don't seem to age at a certain point.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we need to workshop it. I think we need to find something different because I hate hearing Asians don't raisin.
Oh, I agree. I don't like the imagery, I don't like the sound. It doesn't suit us.
Mm-hmm. So we'll figure something out.
For real.
But until we do, let's go over our recommendation for the week.
Our recommendation for the week is Cara Pelagio Tapai Jabola Carolis. Cara is an insular territories feminist who advocates for the demilitarization and decolonization, specifically of Hawaii, Guahan, or also known as Guam, and the Philippines. What I appreciate most about Cara's work is the perspective that they give on Instagram. When they offer their thoughts, they broaden, deepen, and sometimes challenge my personal views. For example, when it comes to the term sex work, many people use it to talk about certain types of work. But one of the posts that Kara made was to say why using the term sex work is harmful. And you can find that on their Instagram. And you can learn more about Kara's work on Instagram at Decolonize Feminism. That's decolonize, DECOLONIZE, feminism, FEMINISM.
Yep. And that's going to be our recommendation for the week. Okay. So we're going into our fifth reading of Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan.
Mm-hmm.
We have one more read after this, but what have we accumulated so far up till now?
So, as a quick recap, Rachel has been charming Nick's family and friends, but has been getting pranked by the mean girls, quote unquote, at Araminta's bachelorette party and hasn't been winning over Eleanor. And on the other side, Astrid is finding out that her husband has had an affair for sure.
Right. And so the other reads have finally led us up to the whole reason why Rachel and Nick have shown up to Singapore, and that's for Colin Khoo and Araminta Lee's wedding.
Mm-hmm. And so we've kind of broken up this read to the before, the during, and the after of the Khoo wedding.
Right. And so, in preparation, Rachel is talking to Pecklin, and Pecklin asks her how many outfits she's going to be wearing to the wedding. And Rachel just says the one, and I think it's like a black and white dress, which is also not supposed to be very good luck for going to a wedding.
Right, because black and white are funeral colors.
Right. I think this is where we continue to see the difference in Rachel's upbringing from her Asian culture, which is that American side that doesn't quite know all these details. The non-rich side of Rachel, which is, I don't know, I guess she's like middle class, I guess, or something
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
But that side doesn't understand that during these wedding ceremonies, she is expected to have multiple dresses or outfits that she can wear so that she can fit in with the dynamic movement of the fashion within this day of celebration.
Right. Can we talk about the black and white dress though?
Hmm.
Isn't it for most weddings you're not supposed to wear white at all?
Yeah, and I think that's an American thing because of the white wedding dress.
Right, and so that's why I'm wondering why she would choose a black and white dress to begin with.
Well, I think you can have white on your wedding dress. I don't know.
Mhm.
I've never had to think about this, but I felt that white meant that you can't wear all white on a dress versus like just having white on the
Like the
dress.
dress? Okay, I can see that. So I think of one of the weddings that I attended, and it was an Asian wedding, and I wore a black dress, but nobody said anything.
Well, it also might be different for cultures, right? I think in Singapore, there's a strong basis around Chinese culture, like
Mm,
Chinese, Hong Kong, Taiwanese, Malay. I feel like all of these come from a similar place of superstition, which might be
mm-hmm,
more delved within the Chinese background and history.
for sure.
So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe within the weddings that you went to, was it like a Filipino wedding?
It was a Filipino wedding that came to mind right away.
Right. And, there are aspects of Chinese culture within Filipino traditions as well.
Yes.
But I don't know. Your mom never said anything to you, right?
She commented more on the risqueness of the dress rather than the color.
Hmm. That's also bad luck. I don't know. I feel like if your mom saw something, she might have said something to you about it,
Fair.
which is one of the ways that Rachel might have gotten that information. But in
Mm,
this scenario, she actually gets it from her friend Peck Lin,
mm-hmm.
and so they have to go on this shopping excursion.
Well, I don't have to go, but Paislin makes her go on this shopping excursion to Patrick's boutique.
Mm-hmm.
They go through outfits, plural, for the Khoo wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's such a rich problem to have.
Hmm. What do you mean?
It's such a rich problem to have that she goes to Singapore, doesn't have the right number of outfits, but conveniently has a best friend who wants to spend money on her.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a problem. And I feel like Rachel doesn't define it as a problem. I feel like it's just her not knowing. And
Mm.
the blessing is that her friend and her boyfriend have the money, which I don't know if Nick really bought her anything.
So that's the thing also that was in the back of my mind. How would you feel if you just found out that your significant other was rich all this time but has been living low key?
I mean, I feel like that would be the best scenario of having someone that lives with humility and seems like kind of more the destination of someone that would fit with Rachel's character of not
Mm,
living a lavish lifestyle, or else
mm.
maybe she would have never been interested in him in the first place.
That's fair. I can see that. And I just feel like personally, if I knew I didn't have to struggle as hard and my partner knew that they didn't have to struggle so hard as a university professor, I feel like I would want them to share.
I guess. I mean, it also didn't sound like Rachel was struggling. Like, granted, she
Mm.
wasn't taking a lot of vacations or going to these lavish places, but I don't know. I think that's kind of the purpose of combining these two characters is that the difference between where they come financially doesn't necessarily drive their decisions into what they like about each other.
And it doesn't define them as people.
Right, exactly. So eventually Rachel finds her dresses and we go to the Koo wedding.
Yes, and during the Khoo wedding, there are multiple stages of this wedding. It starts with an extravagant ceremony at the First Methodist Church. There are security checkpoints, there's forest like decor, and there's Araminta's Valentino wedding gown.
hmm And during this wedding, one of the things that we see from Araminta, who I've liked up to this point, is how much she emphasizes what Astrid is wearing.
Mm-hmm.
it just seems both counter to her nature of what we've learned about her so far, but also matches the characteristics of someone who's very rich and trying to have everything align. Also, I know weddings can be very stressful, so I'm wondering if that has a play into it, but she's so adamantly focused about what, not even how everything looks, but specifically what Astrid is wearing, that it just, I don't know, it seemed a little bit, if not out of character, it definitely made me not like Araminta as much.
Hmm. I felt more like it was part of her character because, like, when we think about how she acted with Rachel at the boutique on the private island,
Mm,
she was very much certain that everything that was on the lines were the highest fashion. So I think she was expecting that everyone who came to her wedding would be of the highest fashion. And in my mind, I think that she saw that everyone was at their best dress, and then saw Astrid stick out to her because she noticed that dress from before.
hmm
So she's picking out the imperfections rather than just focusing in on Astrid by herself.
hmm Yeah, and I get that part, but seemingly most of Araminta's wedding's going well, so we don't get to really hear as much of the big wedding parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we do get to see more personal interactions, one of which is Rachel's meeting of Mandy.
Mm-hmm. And Mandy, who is also known as Amanda, also known as Jacqueline's daughter,
Mhm.
the one who wasn't gonna go at first, but if I remember correctly, Jacqueline convinces her to go.
Yeah, and that's where we get a scene actually from when we were back at Patrick's outfit shop when Rachel was shopping for wedding dresses. We get that side story where Mandy was in a separate dressing room, and the
Mm,
whole story comes out of Jacqueline's whole plan of not only coming to this wedding, but to just move to New York was so that she can, I guess, convince Nick to marry her.
right, to be closer to Nick, to win him over somehow.
Right. Now that we have this whole meeting of Mandy and Rachel, we get the backstory of what Mandy's true intentions are.
Mm-hmm. And Mandy at the reception starts showing off the ways that Nick and her have history.
Right. They have shared a first kiss, they
Mm-hmm.
have shared a bedroom together.
Well, that comes later, but yes, they did
hmm
that, and they also carved their names into a rock with the
hmm
infinity symbol,
Right, right, right.
and it was still there, and she had to point it out for everyone to see.
Right.
And by she, it's Mandy pointing it out for everyone to see.
And by he, it's Nico, which is Mandy's nickname for Nick.
Yes.
So that's kind of the first run-in that Rachel has with Mandy. Another one comes during the wedding banquet where
Mm-hmm.
Amanda is kind of bragging about the relationship that she had with Nick and Francesca and their threesome together.
Well, Amanda wasn't the one who brought it up. Amanda brought up that they were at Capri
Right,
and they were vacationing together and having a fling.
right.
Francesca was the one who was bragging later on, like, oh, was Amanda trying to make you feel jealous? I don't think so, because what really would make you feel jealous is this threesome that we had.
Right. Which I guess I don't know. It seemed very unnecessary and I don't know. It definitely brought up Rachel's worst fears, I guess, within
Yeah.
this whole thing. Because after that, Rachel started to backtrack and really start wanting to not be there. She gets to a point where she wants to pack up her bags and leave this whole scenario and this
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah, it's beyond just mean girls at this point. It's not just them being mean to her and pushing her out of things.
Mhm.
It's pulling her into situations that are uncomfortable, situations that are too close to home, and things that she doesn't know and
Right.
now is being vomited on her.
Right. Okay, in all fairness, if I spent 12 years or something, maybe longer, and I traveled and moved to a whole nother country to be with someone in particular, I guess I would then do my best part to continue on with that when I finally had a chance to meet up with him. Like Mandy spent her whole life trying to get Nick, so
Mm-hmm.
I guess I can see how she would be upset that this random American girl was able to finally, I guess, capture Nick in a way.
Which is such a, I don't know. I don't know what ism it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this whole trying to capture Nick because he's the next bachelor on the market after Colin's been married off is kind of weird.
I mean, the ism is stalkerism. It's really high stakes. I am gonna capture this man. But what we then see happen is Nick's point of view of everything that's happening at the wedding. He's starting to feel the feels of the weddingness and starting to feel like he wants to pursue this route with Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's gonna take them and lead them to, I think, our last read, which is them going away on a trip. And so this is after the wedding. Nick and Rachel kind of talk it out. Nick is able to convince Rachel to stay in Asia and has a whole trip planned for her to take her off island to a different island, I think.
I think they're heading to Malaysia. And let's backtrack a little bit. I don't think they just talk it out because at first Rachel was angry,
Right.
like full on angry. She spews out everything that she's been holding in, like including the fish story, which I personally don't think if I were in her shoes that I would be able to hold it in for that long.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think it's just me and the thought of communication and the lack of it in this situation.
What do you mean the lack of communication? Because I mean, I think the amount of information that Nick gets, he receives and is able to provide the proper information. Like when they talk about this whole situation with Mandy and Francesca, Nick is very honest and says, I've had a history. I mean, we are of a certain age and things have happened. I think he reacts to the fact that Rachel has not been having a good time here. I don't think Nick is blameless in all this. I think he should have definitely prepared her and
Mm-hmm.
given her more in terms of support and people to be with, especially if he was knowingly going to be with Colin for a lot of the time.
Right. And I think that's where I'm coming from with the lack of communication. Astrid told him at the very beginning, you need to prepare her. This is not an easy family situation to go into. And he totally ignores her and doesn't do anything to ease Rachel's entrance into his life.
But I think that's because Nick is so ditzy. He
Hmm.
is this only child who gets the entire world handed to him on a silver platter. And I think his innocence is leading up to his lack of ability to see what Rachel is going to be going through. I
Hmm.
also don't think he fully gets the cattiness of the situations of the women involved in these current circumstances. Well,
Hmm.
the women and Oliver. So I don't think it's necessarily Nick purposefully throwing Rachel out to the wolves,
Oh, yeah.
but once he realizes it, I feel like he does a good job of trying to wrangle everything together.
Hmm. So what he lacks here is not communication, but foresight.
Yes, I think that's much more like it. Which he does try to use foresight to tell his family that he plans on going to this trip with Rachel to Malaysia to not only go and separate themselves and relax a little bit, but also to propose to Rachel.
Mm-hmm. And by his family, you mean Eleanor, his mom.
Right.
Which I don't think he's using foresight here either.
Hmm.
Because he walks into this breakfast fully confident that his mom's gonna support him, but is instantly met with resistance.
Right.
And when he's met with resistance, he just says, I don't care if Amma disinherits me. I don't
Mm.
care if you don't like it. I'm gonna do it anyway.
Right. Very correct. I don't think he understands what it might be like to not live with money versus
Mhm.
the money that he has lived with.
Right. I mean, he hasn't been living with his money necessarily at the university, but to be completely cut off from it, I don't think he knows what that means.
Right. I mean, he's been living with, there's no way that he's gonna
Hmm.
live the same lifestyle, have the same clothes as a
Hmm.
professor. He's definitely getting some amount of money from his family.
For sure. For sure.
So that's going to be the story of Rachel and Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we go back to different parts of the wedding, which is once again what a lot of this read was revolved around,
Mm-hmm.
we see different relationships go different ways. One of which is this whole thing with Alistair and Kitty.
Kitty.
It's a relationship that no one wants in the family.
Yeah.
Once again, we see the ditziness of Kitty. I think that's the best way to put it, is she's just kind of clueless and doing things that she doesn't realize how out of place that they are.
She's very childish and outlandish at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And clearly she's in this for the gold. Like
Yeah.
she's in it to try to get the prize at the end. And that's where we see the intervention of, I think it was Eleanor that started guiding Oliver to do this.
I'm not sure if it was Eleanor herself, but definitely one of the aunties.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the aunties that does not want Kitty there. Ama definitely
Mm,
doesn't want Kitty there as
yeah.
she's finding out more about her. And so Oliver has this whole plan of luring her away from Alistair by telling her how broke he actually is, which
Yeah.
is also not true. He's over exaggerating the lack of money that Alistair will have.
It's kind of true in that if Alistair wasn't so well known, if he wasn't functioning so well in the movie industry, then he wouldn't have as much money as Kitty thinks he does.
Right, but also there's a point where Kitty asks about Alistair's family money
Hmm.
and says like, "Well, I thought his father was a famous doctor." And Oliver knowingly omits the fact that they have all this real estate that they bought, which is actually
Right. Where
how
the
they have
money
all this
comes
money.
from.
Yep. So there's definitely a strong point of deception,
Hmm.
and it seems like Kitty's being lured away.
Well, not just seems, she is being lured away.
Right.
We eventually see Oliver dance with Kitty toward Bernard until they're left dancing together. And Oliver's last words to her were, he's an only child and he's very rich.
Right. Bernard is like the laser pointer to the kitty.
Yes.
The last, and I think the most interesting part of maybe this entire book for me is this relationship with Astrid and Charlie Wu.
Yes. This opened up Pandora's box for me.
Right, because I think the other part is we didn't really get to see this in the movie. So this is the first mystery that we've really come across in terms of our read.
Mm-hmm.
We are figuring out a lot more about their relationship together, and we see this development of Astrid from, I guess, this point of innocence to
Mm.
this person that Charlie kind of started molding, and Astrid started thriving within that environment,
Yeah.
which is the environment of fashion, the environment of money and shopping, and kind of living in lavishness.
Mm-hmm. And it starts off with a flashback
Hmm.
where we see them in their younger years when they're still together and they're visiting Paris for a very short time. And Charlie suggests going to this boutique because he saw pieces that would look great on Astrid.
Hmm.
And when Astrid first walks into the boutique, she's kind of not given any attention. No one really thinks that she has the money. They try to shoo her out, saying that you're not going to be able to afford anything here.
Right. It's the whole pretty woman situation.
Right, it's that. It's also the Calthorpe situation all over again.
Right, right.
And Charlie gets so angry that he pulls the Calthorpe situation back up, in that he calls in reinforcements, he calls in favors so that they get the attention that they want. They end up buying 10 pieces, 10 or more pieces, so that they can show off that they have money.
Right. So overall, what do you think about the relationship of Charlie and Astrid?
I think there's something there. And I kind of feel, I don't know if the word is bad. I don't know if I feel bad for Michael, but I feel bad for Cassian, thinking about what this could do to the family.
Right. I mean, I don't think I know enough about Cassian to feel bad for him. Because what if Cassian's just a massive brat? I don't know. We don't know very much about
We
it.
don't.
I agree. There seems to be something there with Astrid and Charlie. I can't figure out if it's a healthy being something there or unhealthy.
Mm,
They're both coming off very negative relationships of their spouses being separated from them at this point.
right.
It almost seems like ex-lovers finding each other within this smoky situation.
Mm,
And it either can be something that can blossom off of bad judgments, or it might be something where they were meant to find each other within this whole mess.
right. Which I think is what was playing in the back of my mind. The whole, how you mentioned earlier that Astrid's love for shopping kind of came out of Charlie.
Right.
And Charlie has been so gentle and kind and open to Astrid throughout this wedding ceremony.
Really, I see it more as Charlie kind of creeping on her.
Oh.
It comes looking like kindness, And I wouldn't say that he hasn't been kind,
Mhm.
but I'm more wondering what the undertone is with the situation of what Charlie is trying to do or what he's trying to get out of Astrid.
That's totally fair. I mean, the fact that Astrid just spills about Michael's mistress kind of took me by surprise. I thought she would keep that closer to her chest, but I guess she was feeling so comfortable and confident around him that she just lets it all out.
Right. Well, we won't really know until we go into our last read. And this finally got me to a point where I'm much more curious about how this book ends. So we'll talk about everything that happens as we go into our sixth and final read, which are what pages?
Pages 439 to 527 in the physical copy, and for everyone, chapters 12 through 20 in part 3.
Which should be the end of the book.
Yes.
And if you have any questions or have any thoughts on things that you've read, how can people reach out to us?
You can email us at asianbookclubpod@gmail.com, and you can also join the conversation on Instagram at Asian Book Club Pod.
Yep, and we also have our website, which is asianbookclubpod.com, which has our bookstore where we have books that we've read in the past, books that we recommend, and books that we plan to read in the future.
And a great way to support us is to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you happen to be Nick or Pick Lynn, you can also donate to us, and we can figure out a way for you to do that.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, make sure to be happy, be healthy, and read a book.
Ingat.
Bye.
Bye.